Hey everyone, Kareem Rae here, and today I have Hossein Ellahi on with us. Hussein, how's it going?
Hi, Kareem. Thanks for having me on. Everything's good, thanks. How are you?
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today, and I am good. So, before we dive in, can you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hossein Ellahi. I'm 24 years old. I'm Australian Iranian background, and yeah, I'm a professional football player currently playing in third tier in Austria.
Nice. So, we're going to dive straight into it. How did you go pro?
I didn't have like a clean route straight to it. It was like kind of growing up in different countries and kind of finding my way. But I faced like a big rejection at 14. I had a coach just like tell me that he thought I wasn't good enough. So that fueled the fire. Ended up waking up at 5 a.m. for 2 years every day, training before school, training during school, training after school, and then training in the evening with my team. Did that for 2 years, and then ended up going on trial at Seattle Sounders in the US, and then joined their academy, Seattle Sounders FC Academy. And that was kind of my first taste of professional organization. I wasn't officially a pro with them. And then I went on to their reserve the year after, Seattle Sounders under 23. And then I went on to Germany. And that was kind of my first experience abroad.
Yeah. Got it. Nice. So let's dig a little bit deeper into yourself. You mentioned you're from Australia. So for the people that haven't been there, what's Australia like?
Yeah, Australia for me is one of the best countries. The weather's perfect. People are very friendly. People are very, talkative, and yeah, for me, it's the best nation in the world. Yeah, it's great to be Australian, and yeah, I'd advise everyone to go and visit at some point.
Definitely. So you mentioned, at 14, you got, a coach said you're not good enough, you're not going to make it. So that's what fueled the fire. So from there, when you say fuel the fire, let's dive a little bit into that. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so honestly, for me, I was always in love with the game. I always wanted to be pro, but maybe I was just doing a little bit more than what my peers were doing at that point. And then when I faced a rejection, it kind of was like a light switch. I don't know what happened. I literally woke up the next morning at 5 a.m. and just went on a run. And then I just became like obsessed. So that fire, to answer your question, was just becoming obsessed with my nutrition, obsessed with my training, obsessed with my gym work. I used to not watch any shows, any TV, anything. I used to just study games. So it was literally dedicating all my time and all my thoughts and everything to progress in the game and be the best that I could be.
Nice. That's good. That fire was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So when did you first officially sign your first pro contract?
Yeah, so my first pro contract would probably be in Germany. So that was in 2015 with Sportclub Hanau 1960. It's not officially a pro league, but it was a pro contract, and that's in near Frankfurt, Germany. It's in Hanau, Germany, a small town near Frankfurt.
Got it. So can you just name all the the pro teams, the league, and the team that you've played in so far?
Yeah, sure. So I was in the Seattle Sounders Academy in the US, and they were in the DA Academy at the time. Then the year after, I was with the Seattle Sounders Reserve. Then the following year, I was with Sportclub Hanau 1960, and they play in the Verbandsliga in Germany. The year after, I was in Singapore with the S League, which is the first tier in Singapore, and then now it's rebranded into the Singapore Premier League with Tampines Rovers FC. Then I went on to a spell in India with Minerva Punjab FC. I then went on to Australia in the National Premier League, and I was with Cornwall Rangers FC and then Albion Park Eagles. The year after, I came to France. I had a spurt in the third tier, but it didn't end up going into complete fruition as I wanted. So then I signed with FC Vaux-en-Velin in National 3. The year after, I returned to Germany. I was with Holtheimer SG and they play in the Landesliga. And the year after, which is where I am currently now, is ATSV Stadl-Paura in the Regionalliga.
So Hussein, we spoke about, you just mentioned that, you've played in all these different countries and different leagues with all these different teams playing pro. So with that amount of experience, what advice would you give to players that want to go pro?
Yeah, I think it always just comes down to that extra amount of dedication and sacrifice and everything in comparison to your peers. I also think it's about not having fear and getting up and going. I see a lot of players that have talent, have quality. Technically, they could make it, but they don't because they're just afraid to get up and go and be in an uncomfortable environment and get out of their comfort zone and be away from their family. But the reality is, without sacrifice, it's near to impossible for you to go up and beyond in any field. So I really do think it does come down to obviously doing things different than your peers and competitors, but also getting up, taking a leap, jumping off that cliff, taking risks, going to somewhere where you may not speak the language or it might be a different culture, but you never know. That could be the place where your style suits, and that's where you have your big break and you go on and do great things in the sport.
Got it. Great advice. Let's tap into, the good things and the not so good things, right? Like we know there's a good side of the game and there's a not so good side of the game, but not, talk bad about it, but, more so of things that players should be prepared for when going out to other countries and things to look out for. For example, like visas, if you're not from that country, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have, that's a very good question. And to answer it, we have access to the internet. That's a big thing now. So when it comes to understanding if somewhere is safe, understanding if somewhere, what language they speak, understanding if there's certain cultural values or things that you need to be aware of, regulations, foreigner rules in the football, whatever it may be, you can access to all of it online. So that's one thing where you can use that to your advantage to be well informed about where you're going as well. If you don't speak the language and you want to learn the language, you have apps now where you can completely tune into, you can integrate yourself without actually going there and integrating yourself yet. So you can be very well prepared. That's kind of a little bit outside the game, but then in the game, you can study games. You can watch games. You can see where players came from, what they did. Maybe they were somewhere that you were, in a league that you were, and they went on and did that, whether that's motivation or inspiration or also a way for you to see that, hey, he did this to adapt to his game, to this country or this league or this style of football. But then another thing is like having the ability to learn, being a sponge to information, because the reality is when you go abroad as a player, especially if it's a young player that's never been professional, they have to be willing to learn. They have to be willing to go there and just open their eyes, open their ears, and most probably close their mouth, just to gain information and learn. Because the reality is you need them. They don't need you. You're going there to grow your game and to get an opportunity and to excel. You just have to go there, learn from players, watch different players. What do they do off the pitch? What do they do on the pitch? Ask questions, whatever it may be. But it's not easy. You lose family members, holidays, tough, it's difficult. Being the foreigner, you always got to do more.
What about the good things? What comes with traveling to all these different countries? What do you get from that experience that helps you as a person and player?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good is you love what you do. Every morning you wake up, all the struggles that you have to go through aren't necessarily struggles because you love it. You love working hard. You love running. You love the blood, the sweat, the tears. You love the challenge every day. You love the constant growth. The looking at yesterday and analyzing and seeing if you're better. If you need to work on certain things. It's my love. It's doing it every single day.
So Hussein, once you signed your first pro contract, what things changed in your life?
To be honest, not much for me, because I had this theory before that it was the piece of paper doesn't make you a pro. you're already a pro before that piece of paper comes, before that signature's put on the paper. It's how you live, how you think, how you present yourself. You know, you can see someone that excels in a field, in any field, and just by looking at them, you're like, oh, that's a somebody. You know, that man or woman is a somebody. And for me, it was just portraying myself as a professional without having that contract beforehand. So when that contract came, I was still training those same hours. I was still doing the same recovery, still having the same diet. The only difference was I was, you know, ahead in front of more eyes at a higher level. But to be honest with you, not much changed personally for me, because I love doing it all anyway. It wasn't necessarily that, oh no, I have to do X, Y, and Z now that I'm a pro and I have responsibility. I loved it all, and I still love it all. So, yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing points.
Yeah.
I can see the passion. I can see the
love. Yeah.
So, you know, obviously with signing pro contracts, you got to have an agent. Sometimes players know. What was the pathway that you chose? Did you sign contracts by yourself, or did you have help with an agent?
I've had a bit of both. I've had several agents over the years, but then there has been a few times where it's been through friends, it's been through referral of friends to their former agents or their current agents. But also I've also just gone and presented my profile, and then gotten a trial or things like that. So it's been a little bit of everything for me. I think some players, they restrict themselves, so they only stick to one way. But the reality is, if one way gives you 30% of finding an opportunity, and you have 3 ways, that's 90% right there of finding an opportunity. So it's just maximizing your chances and being open, being open to knocking on different doors and finding different possibilities. But also, I mean, we touched on this off air, but also just giving. Once you give and you help others in whatever they need, people will come and help you. So it's that kind of mirror effect in life, and that good karma as well that I believe in.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to players that haven't come across an agent yet, or are actually good players and agents might be coming to them soon? What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is so many players that don't have that status that are good, and I've seen that everywhere that I've been. Like players that are far from the pro world, or don't have those specific databases that are needed, or those videos that are required, or anything like that, but they have the quality to be playing at a good league. I've also seen it the other way, where there's players in those places that don't deserve to be in those places, but because of what they've done, they are there, or because of certain factors, they are there. So what I would say to players that are good and have that self-belief is, find your door. If this door's closed, you go to another door. If that door's closed, you go to another door. If all the doors are closed, go break the window. Find a way into the window. There's a way to make it. It's just on the player, We all have 2 legs. We all have 2 arms. We all have 2 eyes. We all have 1 brain. So if he did it or she did it, I can do it. And I think that's the mentality everyone should have. But yeah, you can knock on doors. You can find different ways to network, ask players. But pack your boots. If you have true self-belief, you pack your boots, you pack your bag, you say, hi, I'm here for an opportunity. And if you're good enough and you stick to it, the time will come, for sure. Maybe it's more difficult. I can definitely understand that, but the time will come. Just it might be a bit later. And because everyone's path is different, once you accept that and you'll make it, it's just a matter of time, not a matter of if.
Absolutely. You said this before. You said, sometimes there's players that are, obviously they have the abilities, they're good enough.
Sure.
Wonder kids or wonder players that have that support, right?
For sure.
Players that, for example, like us, we didn't, maybe for whatever the reason was, get that support per se. And,
for sure.
How were you able to continue to push through?
So for me, and I reflect on this from time to time, it was never about, it was never external motivation or external support. I did have a great support system, but it wasn't ever really like about that. It was just kind of internal for the love of the game. I think that's the most important, because if you don't love it and you don't have a passion for it, when the times get tough, you don't want to push through. You know what I mean? Because when times are tough, or you're going through a drought, a goal drought, or something like that, you still show up because you love the game. You love the grass. You love the sound of the ball. You love the ball hitting the back of the net. You still love the game, so you continue to go. But when you don't love the game and things are tough, it's difficult. So I think the most important thing is to have something internally, whether that's love, whether that's motivation, or whatever it may be. But then there's other sources. There's external inspiration. There's, family. There's coaches. There's friends. I think a big thing is also finding a mentor, or anyone you can learn from. I have a few good friends that I openly go to, and they openly come to me, and we kind of feed off of each other. Or just going and, respectfully asking someone for help. When you go in there wanting to learn, wanting to grow, you can kind of, just get yourself out of the rut. Because if you're in a rut and you don't know how to get out and it's difficult, you go and you kind of put yourself in a position to grow and to learn. So you ask, I'm going through this and it's difficult for me, and can you help me? But at the end of the day, if that internal thing isn't there, no one can help the player from an external source, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that really makes sense.
Yeah.
So what, let's dive into, being on the pitch. You've played in front of hundreds and thousands of fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that come with? They call it the 12th man, right?
Yeah.
Especially away games. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that?
For me, I used to have this thing in my head where when I play in a big stadium, it's going to be so like crazy, or when I play in front of people, it's going to be so crazy. But like, the reality is that grass is still the same grass. That 22 players is still the same 22 players. The ball, the objective, the mindset, the lines, it's still the same game. But for me, I enjoy it when it's against me. I think it puts this pressure on me, this excitement when I hear things, or for example, in certain countries, there's a culture around drinking and the game. So you have a lot of fans under the influence per se, and they say certain things, and I love that, to be honest. I kind of have that old school mentality where I like the defenders that step on my toes and elbow me, and the fans that insult me. I love it all. I love it all. Yeah. Nice. So for me, it's no problem. Bring it on. No worries at all.
Drives you, gives you time. So, what position do you play?
I'm a striker, and number 9.
Nice. And what advice would you give to, what tips would you share with players that play in the same position as you that has helped you in your game?
Yeah, I can't tell them my secrets typically, but because we're on OneSoccernation podcast, I'll tell them, no problem. I think once you understand and you know that it's your position, and you want to specialize in that position, then training specifically for that position. So I think this is a position of movement. This is a position of finishing. This is a position of having a good first touch. This is a position of having the right body shape to be able to minimize the amount of touches you need to take to be on the ball. I would say though, there's obviously so many other factors, working quick feet, working your speed, working your strength, and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's about specifying what you need to work on to excel in your position. Because if I'm a striker and I'm working on clearing balls with my head, how many times am I going to be clearing a ball in my head in my defensive third? Versus how many times am I going to be in the attacking third, looking to face goal? So obviously you just spend more time doing what you're going to be doing in a game. And everything you do in the training ground or in the gym has to be for the purpose of, I try to think, whatever I do off the pitch is to put me in a better position to score more goals or to have more chances on goal, right? So you have to do that in the training ground as well. Everything you do has to be for your position.
Got it. Last question. What's been your most memorable football moment?
Sorry, memorable?
Most memorable football moment?
Oof. Honestly, for me, it hasn't been in my, it wasn't in my pro game, and it was when I was younger, and my father used to watch me. Well, every time I'd score, he'd give me a thumbs up on the side of the pitch. So it became a routine that when I'd score, I'd look over and he'd just pop me one of these. And yeah, for me, that's always the kind of highlight. And I think it always will stay the highlight. No matter where I get, that's where I came from. And I think that's where I developed a love for my position and for for scoring goals. And I think that'll always be
Yeah, that's really special. That's special. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us, man.
No problem. Thank you.
So we're going to dive into the speed questions. You got to ask me fast, Hussein.
Okay.
All right. So, or actually, sorry, did I miss anything? Was there anything that you wanted to add in?
No. Everything good.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect questions, and I think perfect answers as well.
Absolutely. So, who's your favorite team?
Favorite team? I'd have to go with my national team, the Socceroos or Team Melli, so the Australian and Iranian national team.
Favorite player?
Favorite player? Inzaghi, I'd have to say.
Got it. Favorite cleats?
Nike Mercurial.
Favorite food?
Lasagna.
Yeah, nice. And what about, and last one, your favorite artist?
Musical artist, yeah?
Yeah.
It would have to be the late Nipsey Hussle.
Nipsey Hussle, long live.
Yeah. Long live Nipsey Hussle.
Hussein, before we go, I just want to thank you for joining us on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
Thank you very much, Kareem. It was a pleasure to be on, and I wish you all the best with everything and anything that you want to achieve.
Likewise.